Hi, and welcome to the Arcast podcast, where we highlight Arkansas podcasters and industry experts.
Subscribe to the Arcast podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and in all of the major podcasting apps. We're also on YouTube at Arcast Pod. Welcome back to the Arcast podcast. It's presented to you by the Arkansas Podcast Collaborative, and we have an event coming up, the Arcast Podcast Festival.
Yep.
There's a lot of podcasts in there.
Yeah.
Podcast, Arcast. September 7th is coming up. We'll be at the Innovation Hub in North Little Rock again, and with me today is a very special guest. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I am Brittany Rush. I am the COO. Sorry, that never comes out right. You're the COO. CEO. God bless it. Can we just cut that out?
Let's see how you really
All
feel.
right. Oh, so yeah, I'm the COO of American Business Engine, and Ty and I partnered last July, and August 1st we jumped into planning Ty had already planned Arcast the first year, the day premiere inaugural event. We had that September 8th last year, and I just jumped in, helped him with promoting everything, helped you. This is super odd and different.
Yeah. So, first time on a podcast.
Yeah.
You've dealt
This
with
is my
podcasts.
first time on a podcast. I've listened to them.
Yes.
I helped last year with the promotion of the event.
Right.
But yeah, this is my very first time on a podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But you've been studying up since last year. I think it was like some of your first exposure to real podcasts, and then
Yeah.
the event itself, listening to people who've been doing it for a while on stage, and you learn from them, and networking, of course.
Yeah.
Now it's like we've had a whole full year of that.
Yeah, we've had a whole year of that, and actually, there have been some good conversations leading up to the planning for Arcast,
Sure.
and so I've delved into some different podcasts that talk about just like how you put it together, how you figure out, what you want to talk about.
Right.
You mentioned the networking thing, so like how do you source your guests? Like there's been a lot of talk about it, and so it's become very, very intriguing to me, and I'm very highly considering starting my own. And I've got a few ideas for that. So hopefully this year I can actually be more present in each of the workshops that we're going to have leading up to the event,
Right.
and not just running around everywhere trying to make sure that everything was, you were hosting it. And so I'm like, okay, let's just everybody make sure that everything else is working right and it's great. And
Right.
so the benefit of having the all the content on YouTube that people can go back and look at from last year if they weren't there. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely been an education
And there's a
journey.
little mix from that for us, as managing everything to be making sure it's entertaining and educational, but also
Yeah.
trying to listen to, because there's a lot of really great things that are coming out on stage that we're trying
was
to
a ton.
absorb. And so it was useful for me to go back into the videos afterwards and listen to what was actually being said.
Yeah.
In the moment, it's just like you feel the heat of the eyes of the crowd like
Yeah.
looking at you, and
Yeah.
like, is that over there? Are the snacks running out over there?
And there was so
Yeah.
much last year, like that being the first time, like the first event that we had actually executed together, and independently. But
Right.
it was like, okay, this is, and so there's tons that you can go back and look on, but at the same time, like there was a whole lot of really great content.
Sure.
So, I mean, even going back third and fourth time listening to it, there's
Yeah.
going to be things you can pick up. So,
Absolutely. So you're also a member of the Arkansas Podcast Collaborative, the nonprofit that we started this year. You're a co-founder.
Yep.
And board member.
yep.
Yes.
So that has been very eventful. We've been putting together the sponsorships and offering those to a lot of different people, and the connections that we're making there. What we've developed in the networking side with American Business Engine has been great, but being able to really tell people like, hey, this is what we're looking to do to help, diversify podcasting in Arkansas and be more inclusive, that DEI piece that's really becoming a trend and people are trying to embrace. That's what we're looking to do, to diversify those voices and get out to different parts of the state, going to Northwest Arkansas and just telling people, look, like this is what you can do with it. It can be a part-time, like fun thing for you, or if you really want to make it a big deal and monetize it and make it part of your business, or full-time, like do that as your business, then it's a great way to do, different things. So, yeah.
So, besides, of course, the Arcast itself was like, some of your first exposure to it. And you've heard podcasts before.
Yeah.
You grasp the concept of what it is.
Yeah.
So what has you where you wanted to, I don't know, just like join on to the nonprofit itself and pushing podcasting itself forward in Arkansas? What has you excited about that? Like why podcasting? There's lots of different media.
Yeah, okay, so you just set that up for me to tell about that, because so my background is in advertising. I graduated from UALR in 2011, got my degree in marketing and advertising. That has been everything for the last 12 years. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, seeing what it can really be as a new and upcoming form of media here in our state, I think it's a great time to be able to explore that, because I mean, it's an extra way for you to connect your business with a new audience that you might not have reached before, and also educate those people, you know. I mean, even in a sense, like I can see how I've talked to several people about this, how it's an opportunity for other individuals to learn about possible new career paths. You know, it's like, hey, I don't know what I want to do when I go to college, but I want to educate myself, especially the younger generation. They're listening to podcasts. Mm-hmm. And so I feel that's a good avenue for them. But also, you know, again, going back to the networking piece, it's like you can go and listen to different podcasts that have a certain niche, and then you can say, hey, I want to connect to this person, whether that's reaching out through social media and you learn about them and see what their story is, or, you know, you find a new business that you didn't know about and maybe they're hiring and you want to go work for them or whatever. I mean, I just think there's so many things that podcasting can do for local businesses and consumers, either on a personal or professional level. And so, I mean, the opportunity to help people incorporate that into their marketing strategy for their business, like I think that's a huge addition to the importance of it. And so I was like, yeah, like I absolutely want to join this nonprofit. I would love to be a co-founder with you and Karen and talk about, like, look, this is what's not being really recognized too much in Arkansas, at least not in Central. I don't think people know about it, but they don't really know what to do with it or how to proceed with, you know, growing it and benefiting themselves.
Sure.
So,
and you said you're considering, you know, maybe starting your own.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, as a person in that position, where you don't have a whole lot of like hands-on experience, this being your first time being on a podcast, right? But wanting to consider starting your own, you're fine. What are some of the barriers to entry that you see?
So especially just not really knowing where to start.
Okay.
So I think that's the big piece that's going to be really awesome for us to have at Arcast, especially, you know, the podcast basics workshop that we're going to do, coming up with the ideas. You know, I think the not really knowing what you want to talk about, that and how to execute that idea, you know, like that's something everybody will say if you mention the word podcast. They're like, oh yeah, I listen to such and such. I thought about starting one, but I don't even know where to start. And it's like, there's plenty of sources out there, but why not be able to get firsthand experience? So like getting in and again knowing where to start is one big piece. Also, you know, not having a space that's, you know, properly set up for the audio portion, or the equipment that you need for the audio, and the equipment, you know, if you want to incorporate the video into it. I mean, and then the engineering side. I mean, there's so many things. But I think if you find the right sources, then you can kind of navigate that, plus having somebody that can coach you, you know.
Yeah. And I think you said it before, you know, getting the information from the podcast festival itself, you know, a week long of workshops that you'll be experiencing. And then, you know, we're you know, personally, as you know, the ones that are organizing it, we get to, you know, first we get to have different encounters with these people that are speaking, you know, than the normal crowd. We get private one-to-one time where we get sort of you know, coaching lessons, even though that's not what it's supposed to be, you know.
Right.
It's like, well, how do you do this? We get to ask those questions.
Right. And so that's been like an even greater encouragement and driver for me to want to do that, I think. And so, yeah, I have a feeling that will happen sooner than later.
Yeah.
Like, my boyfriend's already like, hey, we basically have everything that you could do if you just, like, wanted to start it and try it.
Of course.
I'm like, so as easy as a phone and, you know, a mic or just your HP, I think is what he has. It's got the all that stuff already ready. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah. So, location.
Yes.
Education.
Yes.
And idea.
That's right.
And good defined idea. Those are
energy and putting it forward, getting started.
Yeah, like setting out the time,
yeah.
Finding the time and putting it on your schedule and actually sticking to it. Like, I think that's a huge barrier to entry. Like, on the podcast directory, you know, you can see, like, there's a whole bunch that, you know, they started it 4, 5, 6 years ago, and then they had a handful of episodes, maybe completed like a season or 2, and that's it, and they haven't done anything new. Or, we launch a new one, you have one, and then 2 months later you launch your second one. Like, that's a whole other thing that was covered in one of those podcasts, was like actually going in, setting the time, blocking it out, don't let anything get in the way of that time, and just knocking out like 4 or 5, you know, in a day. So then if you launch, you know, you put out your new episode every couple of weeks, then you've got already 2.5 months worth of content just from one day of sitting down and doing your audio. Obviously, there's more to like the editing and all that, and if you want the video and everything with it. But
so in a way, like the way you described it, it's almost like, you know, scheduling time to go to the gym. You know, it's the same kind of dedication you're having to set apart. It's a different muscle you're having to work out and schedule a part of your life to be, you know, around that, to be consistent.
Yeah, and that's just if it's you. You know, like that's the other thing. Like, that's just if it's you sitting in, you know, your studio or wherever you're going to record and you don't have any guests. Then you have to think about, okay, well, is this something that I want to have a co-host, or I want to have, you know, just me hosting and then I invite a guest on? Like, you got to figure out that whole planning thing. So, I mean, there's a whole lot that goes into it. So, you know, it's fun to like experiment with it, but I think like it's a whole nother level if you want to take it seriously and grow that audience, and, you know, even be able to monetize it with sponsorships and stuff like that. It's definitely it's a full-time job.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So where do you see podcasting going in Arkansas?
Well, so this being our second year, and we have so many things that, you know, so many different niches that we're tapping into, I think it's really going to help. Like, the Arcast podcast, one, will be great to get people of different industries and different viewpoints, you know, involved, promoting that, getting the interest and the education out there for people, you know, having the resource where they can go and find this different content. I mean, I think the sky's the limit, you know, like even though we don't really have much invested in it, I feel like as a state right now, I mean, just once you get out there and start telling that story, I mean, I think, it's endless possibilities. It's just who's the person that really wants to do this, and how can we connect with them, and how can we connect their audience and a new audience, you know, because, you know, I mean, it takes getting somebody in the room, right? You put them in the room, and then they get to know everybody, and when they relate to your story, they want to hear your story more. I think just sourcing the right people, it provides a ton of possibilities. Just, I don't know, honestly, to give you the best answer for that question. I think I kind of went all the way around it. I don't really have a best answer.
That's good. It's your personal answer. Where do you see it going?
So, we've talked a little bit about mine too, you know, but it's like, I feel like this event is really going to kind of help me hone in, like, do I really want to start it? Is it something that maybe I'm going to put on the back burner right now because we want to invest more time into getting the nonprofit going and helping these people? Like, you know, just really seeing what comes of this second year. Like, I feel like it's a great potential, especially now that we're going to Northwest Arkansas. I think I'm ready to see what October looks like once we get through September with all this stuff.
So you're very, knowing you're very detailed, and you like to tell stories. You like to talk.
I do. That's one thing.
Tell stories. So I think that's great. You know, especially that's an asset when you're coming to podcasting, and you're coming with original voice, and you've got plenty of opinions and plenty of stories to relate to, and anecdotes to relate to. So I think it's really going to help you out there. So what are some of the things that draw you in? Like some of the stories that you like to listen to? I know you've been listening to a few podcasts yourself.
Yeah, so there's one, it's a business podcast Diane Helbig does, and she has various advertising, marketing industry professionals on there. So, you know, that ties into my background. The one that I've been listening to as of late is the Serial Progress Seeker. I guess they're kind of on a hiatus right now, but they have got so much great content, and that's really what's kind of pushed me even further into that desire to, you know, start something, because it walks you through like everything, things you don't even think about, things that don't even necessarily relate to podcasting, but more just like generally, you know, in the business sense. There are, you know, a couple of like true crime podcasts that I've listened to, like Burden with Karen Stewart, and that was a really interesting story. I know that true crime is like a big thing, and again, you know, it's a relatively new journey for me, so with learning everything in the entrepreneurship side of things, anything business related is going to be of interest to me, but I think there's definitely a few that I have on my list in Spotify that I'm gonna start going through, but anything that's like sales or marketing or even just, you know, like industry related things, like if there's a specific person I'm trying to get in touch with, like there's anything and everything from, you know, doing something with carpentry to I mean, like, you know, starting I don't even know, like starting, you know, a business, or just endless things that people want to talk about. And I think I'm kind of putting myself in a box because I'm thinking of everything that's like Arkansas podcasting, because that's what our brains have been on for the last several months.
Sure.
But I know there's so many bigger ones. Like I had listened to Joe Rogan a few different times. I'm gonna be honest, that wasn't like my
not your thing.
It wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You know, everybody's entertainment interests are different, and so I know you've got some really cool ones that you've shared with me before. And you know, I guess it all really depends on like what catches your ear. I mean, if you have one that you found that's got several hundred, I mean, I'm a binger.
Sure.
Like, you know, when Ozark came out, I sat there and watched like the whole new season in like a day and a half.
Yeah.
So like that's what it's been like for me. I like the 20 to 30 minute podcasts, because if I can't finish one episode like in the car going somewhere, I can get back in the car and I will have finished it before I get to my next destination typically. So the shorter ones, in my opinion, are some that really get me listening to, because I feel like if it's an hour or more, I've got to go back and it loses me. It loses me.
And I think, you know, your taste in podcasts, just like TV shows, or it's like you just discovered TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if your life
exactly
mostly, you know, revolves around like, well, how do I make this small business work that I own? You know what I mean? You're going to be trying to find the shows that relate to that and try to learn the most you can. So like the way we listen to podcasts, everything you mentioned is like on the businessy side, and gives you more skills. And like I do the opposite, where it's like it's more entertainment and escapism for me. And so I stick towards like my video game news podcasts.
Okay.
Or that's the ones I listen to like every single day consistently. And then the fiction story podcasts and stuff, I rarely ever listen to the ones that are about businessy stuff, unless I'm just specifically trying to learn about a very particular type of thing, you know, ChatGPT, how to you know, put those the right sequences in for whatever I need. And so it's interesting, and I think your taste will grow as you listen to podcasts more.
For sure. And I think even just like as, you know, we have the new guests that come to Arcast and the different workshops, you know, like those are going to pique my interest.
For sure.
But yeah, there's a lot.
So for Arcast itself, and you said, you know, like last year you helped organize, but also you did a lot of the running around the flyers and promotions and stuff, and that's your background is marketing.
Yeah.
So I guess, can you talk a little bit about like what it is that you're doing marketing wise for the festival, and like gathering sponsors, and how does that work out for you? Yeah.
So that you whenever you tell the story, you know, about how Arcast started, it's like, I'm not really, like, I did this because fundraising wasn't my thing. And I'll be honest, like, fundraising has never really been my thing. It's been, like, selling things, right?
Right.
And so these sponsorships, I totally see the value in it. And again, you know, it's just going to be like that recognition. So the more that people become familiar with what we're doing with Arkansas Podcast Collaborative, I think that's really going to be able to pick up some steam. It may not be for Arcast this year, but ongoing with the workshops and speakers that we have and everything. As far as, you know, like the marketing side, helping to take care of, the social media has been a big thing, like going through when new posts get out there, like sharing that, making sure that we mention people, that are either speaking or the venues and stuff, tying all that back into, the cross promotion of the event and this podcast. But the sponsorships have been like a big piece, like looking for people, either that are part of the industry or that tie into somehow and see, the bigger piece for podcasting. So like it's really cool to talk to somebody, and if that person in particular isn't big on podcasting, like one of our sponsors, he's like, yeah, my wife loves true crime. And so when you and Karen were going to talk at the True Crime Fest, I told him about it, and he's like, man, I wish I would have known about that, like before it happened. And so like trying to make sure that those events get promoted for people.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, that's a piece, again, and like unfortunately sometimes kind of like with these events, like we've had a lot of time to plan, but like on that first one we people didn't know as early as we would have hoped, but at the same time like we still had a fantastic turnout for the first year. And so just the marketing of it, to like go in and talk to people and say, hey, this is what we're doing. If you know anybody, even a listener, not even necessarily an aspiring podcaster or someone that has an existing podcast, like just telling them about it. There's so many people that just that networking piece, they're like, oh, that's really great. Like, I need to tell so-and-so that y'all are doing that. They're going to love it. They're going to be there. And so then referring them back to our different pages and getting them to share that content and mention people and all that. I mean, seeing the social piece being one of those things that I manage with American Business Engine, all of that tying into the greater picture of the marketing, avenues. That's definitely something that I've taken interest in and helped participate in a lot with this. But even, like some of the speakers, that was fun, like going out and, brainstorming when we had our meetings and then saying, okay, well, either from my network of people that I've built in the last 5 years of really getting out and connecting with people in and around North Little Rock, since I do a lot of stuff at North Little Rock Chamber, growing that and telling those people, and then them getting excited, and a few connections that I have, they're like, yeah, I'd love to speak. And so then like going through and talking to them about, hey, here's the vision that we have for this workshop, and then seeing their wheels turning and their excitement, that only helps get me even more excited. And then seeing them go the next step and share the posts that we put out, on their social media, and how that grows the recognition for APC. I mean, it's just like all the advertising, all the things. It just that's my big focus.
So social media and the part of marketing, and like, because we're doing both, we're doing physical and we're doing digital. Have you seen, I don't know, like, I guess a big difference, or because like I know we can't determine where everybody is going to be. People are going to be in different places, and not everybody's going to be online. And so we try to cover all the social media platforms that across the internet as much as we possibly can. Are you seeing like a certain response from is one of the social media platforms working better than the others for this that you've noticed?
I mean, honestly, I don't know if Facebook or LinkedIn is which of the two really is doing better for us. I mean, between the shares that people have been doing and that giving us an avenue to invite more people, connect with them, or just simply like going out, meeting people, saying, hey, here's a flyer for our event. They check the QR code, and then just that organic, they go in and they follow and all that. I mean, that it definitely takes a mix, but I think, traditionally speaking, your Facebook and LinkedIn, LinkedIn has grown. I think Facebook has had the most most response generated, but LinkedIn's coming a close second.
And that's interesting, because like earlier you're mentioning how the younger generations are, they're more, I don't know, it's more common for them to listen to podcasts than it is for other age groups. But they're also the ones that are more likely to be on Instagram than in Facebook or LinkedIn. But we seem to, like, we're getting more interactions through LinkedIn and Facebook than we are Instagram.
Well, and I think what's interesting about like some statistics that I've seen recently said like 50% of people that are listening to podcasts have at least a $75,000 household income. If I put that correctly, I'm pretty sure I did. I will.
Half of all listeners.
I think so. Yeah.
Wow.
Don't put all your stock in that, but I'm almost positive that's what it said.
Research, yeah.
I mean, there's so many different things, but I mean, those people, we've been talking a lot about the business and the nonprofit sectors being able to, take the podcast and grow that and monetize it, and increase their reach and their share of voice, I mean, it's like it depends on like there's, niches across all of the different content. So what's going to feed in most of them.
Sure.
So I think that's been a piece of it. Also, probably just going in and the connections that we've made, saying, hey, here's what we're doing from last year, this year. So yeah, I don't think anything ever surprises me with social media.
What's been the response from sponsors that you approach or potential sponsors when you're like, hey, we're putting on a podcast festival, which is, we're the only one that we know of in Arkansas that does that. And so it's a completely new media to a lot of people, even though it's been around for years and years. What's been the response to that whenever you approach somebody and be like, hey, we've got this festival coming up, we'd love you to sponsor, here are our package deals, or we'll work with you? Yeah,
so they've been really excited because, again, most of them listen to podcasts. A few of the people that I've talked to about sponsorships either have their own podcast or they've got a business that sells the equipment for making podcasts. So like that's been really cool to see them pick up interest because they realize the benefit of being involved. And so again, that feeds back into that marketing mindset and seeing this as an investment, for them and their business, as opposed to just looking at it like, oh yeah, we give money all the time for charity stuff or local whatever. It's like you find those people that you see that they see the value in it, and then obviously you're going to go out and talk to people that you find interesting and people that you like, right? People that, again, they fit that mold. And so I think most of the time it's a welcomed conversation anyway. But everybody, even if they can't do something this year, they're like, hey, this is great. Like, I'm going to look and, try and be at least one, maybe two of the workshops and, the big event. So many people, when they hear that we're having the podcast pitch contest, they're like, that's really cool. And again, they want to tell people because they're like, I know somebody that's been talking about starting a podcast. This would be great. So that's been really rewarding, for them to acknowledge the fact that we're taking this step and trying to really help push this medium forward because we see such a great potential in it. And again, them seeing the potential for not only the investment, in their business for this one event, but long term what it can do. So I think even if they're not able to do something now for Arcast, it's a long term like, hey, we might not be able to do this right now, but follow up with us, when you have your next event, or we'd love to see, if we can schedule something with you guys to come out and do, a presentation, even though we're not available for these, to speak or sponsor or what have you. So, everybody's been very, very willing to help and do whatever they can, It might not be the monetary sponsorship that we'd like, because that's what's ultimately going to fund all the different activities of APC through the year, Obviously, it's a nonprofit, so we have volunteered our time, even though we may not be getting paid, which, that's a whole nother ball game. But when you're passionate about something, you kind of look past it and it's like, okay, maybe it's not happening right now, but the more you're out there and speaking about to these people, again, the long-term vision starts to evolve and the interest, in participating, that just grows. And so, you gotta start somewhere, right?
For sure.
And I think that, going into our second year we're really picking up steam. So, even podcasters, they're wanting to sponsor. We've got a couple right now. They're like, hey,
surprised about that.
I know. They're like, and even if they're not invited, to speak, I mean, it's like, I'm going to be at that workshop, and what can I do to get involved? And I'm like,
Great.
Get you a sponsorship, get you a booth, like come out, like promote your podcast, whatever, like. And the networking thing, like the podcast networking event, I'm really excited about that.
Okay.
And people, like that don't even, some people, I've never even been to Flyway. So they don't even know where it is. Yeah. But they don't, it's like, hey, did you know, like, Jason over at Flyway was actually featured on Sips on the Rock, which is Legacy Wine and Spirits podcast. And so, like, how it all kind of flows into each other.
Yeah.
Like, you're featured as a guest on this show because their expertise is in like cocktails and chatting, and just like, again, growing, that brand and exposure for other local businesses.
Right.
So, there's, as you said, I like to talk, so I could just sit here and
that's good. You're getting a lot of good information. No, this is good.
I hope so.
Insider baseball.
I hope.
Whether somebody is trying to figure out if they're trying to go to Artcast, or if they're trying to organize their own event, there's a lot to take away from here. You're giving them a lot of good secrets here.
Hey, they got to get the nuggets, but you know what?
That's
right. The putting it all into action is the next step. So that's where we come into play. You know, it's like if you want to worry about doing the podcast and hosting it and coming up with your content, guess what? Don't worry about the space.
Yeah,
we got you. It's here.
Right.
It's awesome. So.
Besides the networking event, I think another one of the workshops you're really looking forward to was the interview like a pro.
Yeah. So that one has kind of tied into a little bit of like an approach, from a journalism standpoint, just because like the experience that these people have.
Sure.
Like Christina Munoz, she was a connection that I had when I was at THV, and I had worked with her through email. We'd not met in person. Went out to a networking event, met her, we reconnected, and I was like, look, like you have a story and you're doing this podcast and you know how to interview, and like that's secondhand, like it's natural for you. Kevin Newsom that used to be on the radio, like you find these people that have this expertise, and why not, help everybody involved. It gets them out there with their experience. They're obviously more than willing to come out and talk. You just have to put the opportunity there with them, and then I think finding the right people that can bring that right content. So that has really excited me, especially because the venue is the Lehman Library in North Little Rock, and I'm a North Little Rock resident, so native to North Little Rock. I've lived there almost 35 years, all my life, and that was the library that I went to, and like they are really doing some cool stuff to help rebrand and get people in and know about, they have a makerspace over there, so it's like seeing all the different things that we can do to help, other nonprofits and other local venues through, this event and cross promote. So yeah, that makes me very excited. And it's a really cool space as far as audio and everything set up for what we're going to do over there at Lehman. So
it definitely is. I didn't realize that was the same library you used to go to. Growing up in Little Rock.
Yeah. So there's two. So there's the Lehman Library over in Orange by the high school, and then there's Argenta. And a lot of people forget about Argenta. So that's another reason, that I'm excited about this, because the North Little Rock Library system, we're helping them and cross promote.
Yeah.
But yeah, as a little kid, like I went in there and it looks totally different. But it's like, this is what it's all about for me, like having the connections from whatever that experience is that brought it in, and then being able to tell that story. And so having the on demand, if you will, your podcast, however that weaves into your story and telling it. And I'm super excited that we can work with them and host a couple workshops there. So that one's on the 2nd. That is on Saturday the 2nd. So that's actually our first real workshop too.
Yes.
So that excites me. Like, not real workshop, right? But like that's the first workshop
it is.
in the road to Artcast for 2023. So yeah, that's another piece. That just hit me actually. Like I knew it, but like saying it out loud, it's like,
me too.
Like, this is the one of the series. Like, yes, cool.
It's the first one of that size, and I mean, like we've had little small ones during RCast, but like we weren't there, you know. This is like a full event workshop that we're organizing together. So like a couple of things have come full circle for you there in that one event. So like, of course, that was the area you grew up in. That was the library that you went to as a kid, and now you're hosting your own event there, and also your media background. And so like bringing in your connections, it's like different parts of your past all combining into what you are now.
Yeah, and you know, that's the thing too. It's like, we're talking about podcasting, so I mean, that all ties in too. It's like, look, everything that's led you to where you are in this moment in your journey is all your story. And like I've heard you say, like, nobody can tell your story like you. Like, you're unique. Nobody's experienced what you experienced. And so, you know, once you get that person engaged, whether that's in person when you meet them or that's through a podcast, that's one of the things that Dr. Ben Atkins had said on that podcast. He's like, look, you get them used to hearing your voice.
Yeah.
If you have video, you get them used to seeing you, right? And so that personalizes it, and that draws them in even more. So, my whole journey to here, it you never know what's going to happen, and I would have never thought that we would be like growing this nonprofit for podcasting in Arkansas. You know, it's like, hey, you advertise on TV and online with your website and social and all that, but do you have a podcast? Like, let's look at incorporating that into your marketing strategy. So
it's kind of crazy how it all just
it's so cool
we
though.
Say it out loud, and it's just like, it's wild. You hit on it where it's like you telling your story because nobody else can tell that. There's a saying out there, and I'm probably butchering it, but it says that great stories only happen to people who can tell them. And that's just saying that it's not saying that great stories don't happen to everybody. Like, everybody has a story, but like, you only hear about the ones that people speak about.
Yeah.
And so people put the energy and the words out there, and they record themselves. They're telling their stories, and so like, nobody knows your story unless you tell them. And nobody can be helped by your story or learn from your experience or know what you know or be taught if you're not sharing that experience. And so feeling like you don't have an audience is a misconception, because there's definitely an audience out there for you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you can be an inspiration to somebody.
Absolutely.
And you know, just by putting it out there.
Yeah.
So start simply and simply start.
Yes.
I think I've heard that one before. I'm like, that's pretty spot on. But yeah.
So how's your first podcast experience been?
I've definitely kind of, you know, I know I just crossed my legs, so it seems like maybe I'm kind of closed off, but I'm really not. It's after the whole like first few questions. I'm like somebody else we've talked about. I don't really like unscripted, so like not knowing what questions you were going to ask me was like, oh, how's this going to work? But you know what? Like, it's cool. You just talk through it, and it's not live, so we can edit it. But I don't think this one's going to get edited. So I don't think that any of them get edited. So
Well, this tells me you're more relaxed. You got more comfortable with it over time.
I mean, but side note, I've been trying not to cross my legs. I say that's like a bad thing. So I'm like, it cuts off the circulation, causes the varicose veins.
Okay,
so, see, it's a woman's thing.
Yeah. That's why my legs don't work.
Oh man.
Well, great.
So it's been good. It's been fun.
Yes.
And
still fun. It's ongoing. We're still on the train.
Yeah. RCast podcast.
Yeah. So if people want to follow you, where can they do that?
So I've got Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter under Brittany Rush, and I'm trying to think. I don't know my my Insta little. What is it?
Do you use it very much, or do you just cross post from Facebook?
I just cross post, really. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you know, it's hard when like you do that on a daily basis. Like that's what's unfortunate, you know. It's not unfortunate because I enjoy doing that and creating the content for our clients on the ABE side. But at the same time, I realize now I'm like, man, my usage on my phone on Facebook has gone down because I'm not on there scrolling all the time. It's like I'm on there and I'm being intentional, like creating the content, and then every like 9 days I have a chance to actually sit down and be like, oh yeah, let me go in here. So my stuff does get cross-posted. I do some unique stuff though, like on Wednesdays I do a query Wednesday, and Thursdays I do a trivia Thursday on my Facebook page. So there's that. But pretty much all the socials. I don't have a TikTok. I don't have
a TikTok yet.
No.
Not yet.
No. And
Threads?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Are you on Threads?
I haven't started it yet.
Okay.
No, I know. I gotta jump on the bandwagon. It's
Yeah.
What, 2 weeks in now?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So no.
It's the better Twitter. If you enjoy Twitter, it's the better one so far.
See, and I don't really have an opinion because cross post, don't really use it much, but.
And Twitter's just very toxic, and there's a lot of bad stuff on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm sure that
little
the
controversial
threads will get there
stuff
too, because everybody finds a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Life will find a way. Anyways, so if somebody wants to follow Rcast, keep up with the workshops and the main event and us going to Northwest Arkansas, where can they go?
So that is on Facebook and LinkedIn. We've got those under Rcast. We have that page. We also have the Arkansas Podcast Collaborative page.
Sure.
But ArkansasPodcasters.org. That's the best place for you to go. It's got it's got all the dates. It's got people that are going to be sponsors, showing that on there. About our founders, about our board, like all that stuff. We've got a really diverse group, and everyone's super excited about these events. So, ArkansasPodcasters.org.
All right, great.
Yep.
Well, you can see Brittany there. You'll be there.
I'll be there.
Okay.
I'm there. Yeah, I'm there on all the.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule trying to organize this thing. And
glad to be here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep, very
glad
fun.
You could spend your first time here on set.
Yes.
For sure. Thanks.
All right.
The Rcast podcast is brought to you by the Arkansas Podcast Collaborative. Rcast is the Arkansas Podcast Festival, and it is going to be happening throughout September. That's right, September 1st through the 6th, we'll be hosting free workshops across Central Arkansas, and on September 7th, we will have the main event of Rcast 2023 at the Innovation Hub once again. On September 20th, we're taking the festival on the road to Northwest Arkansas, where we will be hosting a podcast workshop at the Fayetteville Library, and the next day will be our very first annual Rcast NWA. Tickets, reservations, and sponsorships are available at arkansaspodcasters.org.